All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, an election that is seen or perceived as unfair can have a significant impact on citizens, both in terms of their individual rights and the overall functioning of their democracy. Now, when elections are not free and fair, the outcome may not reflect the true will of the people. This can lead to policies that do not address the needs and aspirations of the majority, exacerbating existing inequalities and social unrest. Despite assurances from the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, of improved elections, the November 11 governorship elections in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kano states were marred by same issues that plagued the presidential and gubernatorial elections earlier in the year. Voters' registration was chaotic, and there were widespread allegations of electoral fraud. These problems have eroded public trust in INEC and raised questions about the validity of the election results. I mean, you can't miss the very, very, heavily, what's it called? Huge, what's the word now?
Controversy?
No, huge violence that went across even
Oh,
just these three states. So tonight we're asking, right, about the just concluded elections. What does this mean for Nigeria with all of these things happening? Please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-4663. And because our guest is already on Zoom, Kunle Lawal is no stranger to the house. He's a friend of the house and he needs no introduction. I can say that myself. So Kunle, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I'm already a little scared because I had preceding questions you already planned to
Yes, in
ask.
fact, that's why I'm cutting to all that drama and just going straight. Two things for me, Kunle. When I saw the
Mhm.
repeated sacking of governors, right? I mean, so I don't really, I didn't really follow, what's it called, Joss,
yeah.
but Kano State is an what's it called, AMPP state. I mean, what's the name of that party now?
NPP.
NMPP,
NNPP
MPP,
state. You get what I'm
NMPP.
saying? So I don't know what exactly does this mean, because it seems like every governor that is being sacked is being replaced by with an APC governor. Does this make does the I mean is this what's the word now?
Propaganda.
Is this backed with evidence, clear evidence that these other guys won the elections, or is just because we have an APC central that is making some of these things happen? That's number one. Number two, the story that D took, right?
About PDP
Losing their elections. Thank you so much for reminding me. Like National Working Committee, come on. Is that the reason for PDP's failure? I have my reasons, and I feel like that's not the reason for their failure. But I just want you to quickly touch on those two things before we then dive into the conversation for the evening.
Okay, so not to be emotional about this and to really pay attention to what really is going on, I would say I would consider it quite an emotional response if it's because we have an APC central. I would say each party, of course, is jostling to get into power. But let's look at the case in Kano and Plateau. There are issues with overvoting in some places, and the new rules with overvoting tend to stop people from practicing the old game in which they could just hype up numbers. If those numbers or voting numbers are higher than the total number of accredited voters in that polling unit for that day, INEC under the new Electoral Act 2022 will rule that as overvoting. That is the case for Kanu. But the bigger underlying case, which of course will be taken to the Supreme Court, is clearly the case of whether the present governor, as the governor of the NNPP, whether he actually is a member of the NNPP. Apparently, preceding his primaries, I don't think he had paid for a membership form yet. And it's impossible. So they're challenging, I think, of excuse me, of section 1771A of the Constitution, in which it determines the person should be a bona fide member of a political party. So it's more on a technicality as regards Kanu. So Kano is pushing more on a technicality, and if he's caught in that, there will be no way he will not be taken out. It won't even be a matter of votes. it will be a matter that he has breached the constitution in him trying to access his, trying to become a governor. Let's also look at Jos Plateau. Nentawe and his lawyers, of course, duly claim that the governor Caleb Muftang clearly did not satisfy all necessary protocol before before winning his primaries. It is clear beyond reasonable doubt that there was a court order stopping some LG and ward congresses in Plateau State, and this was the anomaly in which or the appeal court gave its decision. The appeal court earlier had given a PDP a stand on, I think, a few local governments and ward congresses. Now, if this is not done, that means the people didn't have a complete delegate system. And there's also an argument with the caretaker committee being the one who actually conducted the primaries and not the original state branch. So it means his primaries is null and void, and hence the argument. So Nentawe and his team, as Nentawe is of the APC, is clearly moving on that technicality, not even on a case of voting. So these are complex things that if you actually look at them, and I think Zamfara is around the same lines over voting and technicalities. I feel this has widened our democracy. It's a lot easy to say maybe it's the center playing, but I would rather congratulate the ingenuity of the candidates of Kano of the APC and the candidates of Plateau of the APC for deciding to look within technicalities to actually broaden and open our democracy instead of just arguing the usual voting and stuff. It's the same thing I expected in the presidential election because clear within the Electoral Act where it clearly states that if soft copies of membership by parties are not given, that's only soft electronic, and then hard copies are not presented to complete membership registers, no party should go ahead to conduct a convention or a primaries or a congress. Now, 18 political parties did not meet this particular parameter fully, and I thought that's what Atiku and Peter Obi will be heading to court with, to first say everybody actually didn't deserve to even qualify. That would have pushed a new narrative in our democracy, but they wanted to argue votes and, few things which I didn't think would hold water in the Supreme Court. Or in the appellate court and also the Supreme Court, which was what happened. Now, as regards the case in PDP and the issue with Wadata House today, if I'm clear, the national secretary of the PDP was the Imo gubernatorial candidate. I believe he lost that election. And this impasse has started quite a while within the PDP. Let's remember that the massive actions in the PDP were all against a northern presidential candidate. And Atiku Abubakar clinched the ticket, of course, beating a lot of people who disagrees. And hence the factions that you've seen with Governor Sheyi Makinde, former Governor Yesum or Honorable Minister Yesum Wike, and known as the G5 then, or Tom of Benue State. And, between this, the NWC has had to act. But the present case that is that an Okoye is supposed to have been put in, and there's a court order stating that the new national secretary should be put in. But the guy who ran for governor wants to come back as the national secretary and continue within the party. And I don't think this maybe is viable. If you're asking me what exactly went to cause the PDP's problem to their loss in 2019, is that they allowed quite a lot of people disagree. There was Atiku Abubakar, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar as leader, and prospective presidential candidates should call Peter Obi and Kwankwaso to the table and sat down and engaged. PDP lost approximately close to 8 million votes if you take out Kwankwaso and Peter Obi's December, or they are leaving the party into cognizance. And 8 million votes is more than enough to beat the incumbent APC. So, for me, I think what destroyed the PDP was more a clash of egos, and they forgot that the goal was to get into the door and not whose name exactly was on the door.
Thank you so much, because I was waiting for you to just land that point well. So when I saw the protest by the National Working Committee, I said, are you guys serious?
Right.
Because Literally, I mean, if you people understood that there was a bigger picture, somebody would have stepped aside and done the right thing,
Yeah.
you know, but not the way the primaries went and the emergence of their candidate, right? I think they did not read the times. If they had read the times well, I mean, imagine if they had supported maybe a Kwakwanso and a Peter Obi,
Yeah.
you know, towards the running for presidency and all of that. It would have been a different. At least they would have given an what's it called, APC, a
a
real
run
good
from their,
run for their money.
yeah.
I mean, but we're discussing the aftermath of the elections, right? I mean, they've just been concluded elections in Kogi State. I mean, Senator Dino Melaye, they've not. There's no form of cartoon and meme I've not seen online, you know, about him ranting and, you know, the subsidy, the fuel being poured on him. Like literally, right? Kano, Bayelsa, Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo State, right? I mean, I don't think I was expecting anything different from what happened in the presidential elections, but really, Kunle, because we've not had this conversation with you, how have you assessed what transpired, right, 2 Saturdays ago, and how are you looking at it, and what does this mean for Nigerians?
Well, for me, first and foremost, the biggest problem for me is that INEC wants to um, do the same thing and achieve a different result. For me, that's the biggest problem. Issues with delivery, poor training of ad hoc staff, um, poor security provided. Though security provided was quite better than normal, but INEC, of course, within its guidelines, has stated that we can't have people carrying weapons at polling units. Everybody have to rely on response teams, and there's quite a lot of work done. I would say I would commend INEC also in the same vein because I would say this is the most secure election in Kogi State's history. Kogi is known for a very, very volatile election. So it's better than the rest. It's not good enough, but it's better than the rest. As regards Bielsa, close type game, Emo was done. But if there's anything I noticed, there was always a flagrant display by the incumbent party, even when the governor was stepping down with a show of power on different things. For me, it was almost appalling to hear the situation in Imo, where Governor Ozodima, who also won the elections, you through the Ministry of his Ministry of Tourism, took over all hotel rooms in the state a week before the elections. I feel this is totally in contravention of I think 92(3) of the Electoral Act, which clearly states that no state or its appendages can be used to the advantage or disadvantage of any candidate. If you did that, then that means if INEC wanted a hotel anymore, they'll have to come to the governor. If other people who were members of other parties wanted to come support, or people were traveling over back and they wanted to exercise their franchise, it means that they were under the spell of the present governor of Imo State. Going to Bielsa, it wasn't such a walk in the park. So many disruptions. Though Bielsa was expected, I think Timpere Silva, who was the APC candidate, was not confirmed till clearly 3 days before the election. I didn't expect him to win that election. He gave a good fight. But Doyle Diri, of course, was incumbent governor and still in charge and still in control of his machinery, which is very strong in Bielsa State. I would say still had that. So going back to the elections generally, from an INEC perspective, from a citizen perspective, Nigerians still vote on basically tribal lines. The situation in Kogi was just a game of Ipira, Igala, and the Oku. It was generally how the candidates were followed. SDP was the Igala candidate, Dino Melaye was the Oku candidate, and the Ipira candidate was Ododo, who apparently won the election. And that was really sad to see that people didn't put good governance first, or Kogi did not consider the impasse caused by Yaya Bello and his foolery as governor into cognizance when they were making their votes or their choices. They rather wanted to vote on tribal lines. I would say, and I'll be very clear, that under no parameter would I ever think that Yaya Bello's government in the last 8 years in Kogi State is anything to use the word G over. For me, you can use any other word as long as it doesn't start with G. And if I remember, I was in the studios that day of another media house, and he made this statement, and he said, his regime has delivered a new regime. I thought regimes were only used in in the military junta. This kind of conversations shows the thought process of whoever was the chief security officer of the state. Let's not forget the Ayabello tried to take out it or took out a road heading to Natasha Akpoti's village preceding her election. So
Kule, was that just
um,
one road or it was multiple roads? Because it did not
well,
just do one road.
I'm very sure of one road.
At
I'm
least you're
not
sure of
the
one,
rest
but the allegations that
conversations,
was
but we're
made
very
was
sure of
more
one.
than one road that was dug up, right? I get you.
Yeah.
I get you. But let me let D come in.
Okay, so Kule, I would like to ask that. I mean, it's rather now very obvious that elections in Nigeria are marred by violence. It's unfair. It's everything that we know it is. And you've given very great points about, why, there's the INEC role as well. But we've also seen that, subsequent after the presidential election, there's been more like voters' apathy. Now, my question is, with more and more people losing faith in the electoral process, how then do we keep this idea, of having a free and fair election,
Or even conducting an election in the first place.
an election,
Because people just feel there's no point because my vote won't count.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the way forward? What can we do?
Many people tend to define elections by the number of people that participated. That's not correct. Many people also have tried to define elections by the quality of or product of that emerges. That's also not correct, and I'd like to tell you why. So you can't put 18 pieces of bad meat into a fresh stew and expect the stew to be well next morning. By 18 pieces, I mean, Nigerians first, and for you to have a good democracy, or for you to be able to engage, first of all, you must understand democracy you are practicing. The political elite know this, that they do not understand the system. Secondly, Nigeria's poor performance. Now, Nigerians generally, with their poor performance, I think just about 6% of our voting population are actually registered bona fide members of political parties. If you're not there during political parties, for me, being part of the primaries and choosing the kind of people that emerge is more important than voting on election day. So most of the time, what we have in Nigeria, which I've said multiple times, is that we have a selection, not an election, because they choose people for you, and then you pick who the big bad wolf and the blue sea is, and then you try to dodge and pick the person who looks like sands on the beach, which is in between. And that's how we've always made our decisions. So Nigeria's poor participation in INEC too hasn't been good. I think the National Orientation Agency too has been sleeping on its duty. That I must call out very fully. It's refused to orient Nigerians. Instead, it's acting as a newspaper tabloid or Instablog, repeating what NTA is tweeting. And that's not the job of the National Orientation Agency. It's supposed to go down as offices in 774 local government. It's supposed to go down and deal with these matters coherently. And that has not been done. So poor education and issues. So we've dealt with the problems. Now, what are the solutions? First and foremost, I think preceding a general election, Nigeria cannot handle a straight election in 36 states with having 400,000 policemen, of which half of them are guarding VIPs. So it means we have 200,000 policemen to police quite a lot that will be participating in elections, at least 30 million in elections. If you put the 200,000 as a very poor set of number of policemen to people that will come out on election day. And of course, we have a bigger voting population, but I'm looking at those that actually come out. I feel one of the, if I could advise INEC, the first thing is you need to stagger Nigeria's elections. That is, you need to stagger it across days. That's the truth. Secondly, and that's because we don't have the manpower. Most of the time, we just scramble things. Second, with the electoral violence, and it shows exactly how worthless or the value of a Nigerian life is. This is not only by the fault of the government. I feel even voters to feel, oh, the guys died in Bielsa during election. Yeah, why they come out go vote now? Next time I know go vote, and that's our position. So I'm really surprised why we are not really pushing forward for an e-election in Nigeria. We have everything necessary. The laws are there already. It's just to say INEC should have the
Okule,
power
you
to
are
do that.
sounding like you are not in this Nigeria. They never feel do electronic voting na e-election they wan come do generally.
I was just about
Wait,
to ask that
wait.
question.
No, let's take a break.
Let
You
me
know what?
let me
Let's
explain.
take a break,
Let
Kule.
me
When we
okay.
come back, because I even want to come back to you on that staggered election. This election that just happened over the weekend, as far as I'm concerned, is an example of what a staggered election would look like, because it was only 3 states conducting an election. We still did not see any, it didn't make any difference. But let's take a break. When we come back, Kule will continue the conversation. Stay with us. All right, thanks for staying with us now. If you just tuned in, we're having a conversation, somewhat like a part 2 of the just concluded elections, and we're asking what does this mean for Nigerians, and we have with us Kunle Lawal. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp 081-803-4663. Kunle, you were going to respond to my, would I call it my attack? You know, because like literally, right? Yeah, because I'm saying, right, it's 2 things. To your point around staggered elections, these elections was just 3 states conducting an election. So if at all staggered elections is a good formula, it will work better. Would have seen it play out with this one, the elections that just happened. Then I mean, you're talking about e-voting, right? We've not even done e-transmission. We've not transmitted the results electronically, literally. But you and I know that the quickest way to get rid of corruption or electoral malpractices would be digitizing, and not just with mouth, like really using technology to address the electoral process, right? But you and I know also that it is very, very difficult to get that done, because that eliminates and eradicates all these voters, what's it called, overvoting, underage voting, some of all of these things that, you know, have plagued our elections over the years. So how are you even now speaking to the point on electronic voting when we've not even solved problem of transmitting electronically?
Which was actually the crux of the whole controversy around the last elections.
Something. I want to first go to the staggered election. I'll start from there. What we saw in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo was better than what we saw in those 3 states on presidential election. You can check any parameter, it was far better. So it clearly stated that with less pressure, less issues would occur. And that's the truth. But you know, there's a way our people come out for a presidential election, and there's how we come out for a governorship election. Juxtapose that with how they come out for a local government election, and you have the Nigerian state. The higher the position, the more interested we are in. Lower the position, less we care. And that's a social problem of our voting patterns. So if it were a presidential election conducted at the rate in which it was conducted in these 3 states, I believe a lot more would have been done. Excuse me. Now to the e-election. I know people that are probably on air or outside or listening to us on TV probably have transferred money outside Nigeria. It is naturally impossible for you to transfer and receive money immediately, whether in the UK or in the US. But that's achievable in Nigeria. Do you want to know why? I'll tell you why. Nigerian man is so impatient with his money. So it's not like we have the best banking infrastructure in the world. But the Nigerian culture would not say I transfer money and then 3 days later I'll get it. It won't work here. If we can adapt that to our elections, of course, which I believe we are ready for. And let's also say the only ratified elections conducted within intra-party in 2016 was done while I was National Public Secretary of Core Party for the Lagos State executive election of the party, and it was ratified by INEC. and it cost so little. And we did it without any hiccups. Simple. If you want, you link people's BVN to their PVCs and you're done. You can't have more than one BVN, so you can't vote more than once. And
Kule,
once you
you are
vote once,
speaking to the
oh,
process, right? I've not argued that that process will be very smooth and efficient, like you've said. What I am saying is, you and I know that it's going to be I can't, let me not say impossible. It's going to be very difficult for the people that are supposed to be decision makers to say, okay, they will stamp a mark of what's called approval on this kind of process, because again, it completely, cripples whatever malpractice or whatever corrupt practices that have been going on in that
I'll
what's
be,
it called, in that space.
I'll,
So it's not the process,
I'll
it's
be
not the
honest.
smoothness of the process, the technicalities of it. I'm saying to you that it is the willpower that is lacking. No, I don't think any politician today will assent
Yeah,
to an e-voting. Why? Because it does not
let,
favor them.
let me be honest, and you just hit the nail on the head. The only reason it won't be assented to won't be because it's not possible, but it'll be more of, I don't believe 92% of Nigerian politicians will return back to office if it were put in place. But we also cannot undermine the new set of Almanjiris that are going to, no offense, I'm just using the word as Almanjiris, meaning a block vote. I'm not using it in a condescending manner. So anybody listening should not think that. And I'm from northern Nigeria, so it's not that way. But what I'm trying to clearly state is that diaspora is probably going to be allowed to vote, I think, in 2010, 2027. And right now, that bill is in the House. And I wish more Nigerians could, understand that that bill is in the House and try to shed more light and make more moves towards it. It's an important bill, and I think it is something that can work. If we're able to get diaspora to vote, it will change the course or the history of elections in Nigeria. That is critical. And it's one step at a time. If diaspora starts voting, then it means that we're headed closer to an e-election that we ever have been. I fought for this particular thing since 2015, and I'm still in the ring. So it's patient, it's time. Our people, and who knows, maybe a president deciding to leave after his second term will decide to allow it fly in 2031.
Well, I still think that for this to work, then there has to be the buy-in of all the stakeholders around, the people, the politicians, everybody. Because, I mean, again, the last presidential elections, the issues really were, I mean, it was a clear case of misinterpretation, whether it was on the side of the people or on the side of INEC or from the court, the interpretation. So again, I mean, there is the fear that if you bring this new system, maybe e-voting and all that into play, then it becomes the discretion also of INEC, so to say, to say that, okay, this is how we want to read this, or this is how we want to interpret.
I mean, listen, literally, that's what happened now.
So it also, there is a disconnect between what the people are expecting and then what actually the law is, or what the interpretation of INEC is. So as long as there is that disconnect,
all those clauses,
exactly,
and hidden what's it called, interpretation.
There would always be issues around people feeling that, okay, elections are not totally free, So I honestly don't know.
This is where I don't get it. Nigerians want something. They're not concerned about the process or haven't looked at it. And then they want to hold. When it finally happens, they also do not hold whoever is responsible. I'm surprised. I'm surprised, and no offense, I'm not calling for anything bad, but I'm surprised Festus Okoye still has his job. He told the Nigerian people as the head of media in INEC, and clearly told us that they were going to transmit this via IREV live. But we also in the civic space, and a few of us that understand the Constitution and the Electoral Act knew that INEC has the full power to choose whatever means necessary. We know that is in the law. But INEC, in doing that, told Nigerian people one thing. It's a case of what you ordered and what you got.
What you
I
got,
think that's the
yeah.
simplest way to explain it. And first, it's like Okoye and the chairman, present chairman, were very, very guilty on that parameter. You can't blame anybody else. They were guilty of it because they went, if I believe, the INEC chairman even flew to Chatham House and went to tell them that. And then came back and did something different.
Yeah.
If you were going to do something different, you should have released a press statement earlier, preceding the election, and told us you're going to do something different. You don't order a Lamborghini, then you send me a Kia Cerato, no offense to the car brand, but you send me a Kia Cerato and tell me, imagine it's a Lamborghini. I won't. And I think, and because the people allow it, and because they also know you would allow it, and
So,
this is not
Kunle,
an inciting statement, but
sorry,
you
sorry,
allow it, which is
sorry,
why it happens.
sorry to butt in, right? Because I've heard this argument several times. Please, Kunle Lawal, what would you have the people do? Because literally, right? It's tiring. Everybody says it's because the people allow it. What do you people want the people to do? Tell me, what can we do?
Well, okay, if you're disappointed in INEC and you guys stand out and say, we don't want the INEC chairman again, we want to revise some electoral reforms, we want no choice on IREF, and none of us is going to work till that happens. It will happen. If you guys say we are not voting in the Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa elections, they were sure that IREF is going to work as so.
Wow.
Done e-elections, and we're not voting till then, it will happen. If you ensure that your senators do not come home till they ensure that those bills are passed in the House, or you move for a recall, since they won't do it, so that INEC will conduct an election 90 days after you've recalled them and move. Nigerians are not serious about Nigeria. Let's be honest. Let's not, it's very easy to push blame in one direction. I'm not playing that. If we want a functional country, the government must do what it needs to do. The citizens must do what they need to do. The media should also do what they need to do. You have some hostile TV stations that are in love with sensationalism, and they end up misguiding the electorate and telling them what exactly politics is and what governance is, and they fall in love with the sensation and they never even get anything. Now, I'll give you an example. How many media in Nigeria are letting you know that local governments have more money? How many media in Nigeria are letting you know that state governments have more money because we've taken out fuel subsidy? This is common information. If you Google it, you would have it. But nobody is talking about it. They'd rather talk, somebody's trying to Islamize the country, or this went this way, or somebody will come on TV and start talking down his guests. That's what we're interested in. Then you don't blame yourself for the situation of the country you have present when you don't want to listen to who are telling you what to do and how to do it. That's the problem.
Okay, so lastly, I want to touch on the quote we shared. That so I want to ask.
Please, can I put that quote up again? Say, even Jesus Christ cannot conduct a free and fair election in Nigeria.
Okay, so I want to speak to the violence part of it, and I want to ask Kunle in his expert opinion. How can we mitigate against violence? And really, truly, what truly is the cause of this violence during elections in Nigeria? Is it somehow, what's the word? Is it the word is here. Is it something that politicians do actively? Or is it just a result of poverty or lack of education? I truly want to understand, because Nigerians really, we're fearful people. And I'm not very sure that Nigerians willingly just put themselves in harm's way, so to say. So when we keep seeing this violence and senseless violence, more like, I really want to understand what is the root cause of this violence and what is the way forward. How can we ensure?
And do you agree with Obasanjo?
I'd like to add an appendage to the former president's statement, and that is, if we could get angels from heaven to share samosa at a wedding in Nigeria, the samosa will still get stolen, and it would never, it would never. So I'd add that too. So don't when you're discussing Nigeria, don't try to make it about elections and politicians. It is a Nigerian idea to try to beat the system. It is a Nigerian feeling to want to do something disastrous. If you're talking about now, let's say, elections and what could we do to mitigate, first and foremost, the only reason we have violence and we have so much strife and politicians anywhere in the world, US, Nigeria, UK, Ghana, Liberia, they want power. What happens in what happens in other countries is that they block the loopholes, that's the electorate and the government, that politicians cannot do anything. If not, politicians, anything goes anywhere in the world. So the first thing we need to do is first de-emphasize the money in elections. But how we de-emphasize when media stations, and I'm going to rope you guys in this, we want to, Kunle is running for president, and once Kunle comes, you want 3 million because I came to sit down in front of you to tell you what I'm going to
No,
do.
Kule, I
You're
take
part of the
exception to
corruption.
that.
Are you removing your? I'm
Kule,
not taking
I
exception to
take
that. I've run
exception to
for
that
office.
because
Oh,
on
why?
this particular table, not a dime was collected from anyone that was running for elections
When
during the campaign.
wait,
Not one single dime. So I take exception to that. Don't add us join the matter.
when I say media, I didn't say waste. So if you are collecting stray bullets that I did not give you, you see how touchy you have become. Can you see? Nigerians don't want the truth. Are you aware teach stations do this? Yes, and you know I'm not lying. You can say I didn't say ways. I didn't say ways at any point, but I said the media. The same with radio stations. I've run for office now, so you can't tell me that one. Me, I know this one. You understand? So you have media doing that. You have all of a sudden, UA, for example, I don't know, maybe she has printing press. The printing press does not work. Oh. Once they just announce election, hey, UA don't print like 60,000 posters at exorbitant prices. Jola now has a blog. If Kunle wants to put out his manifesto on the blog, normal people that she was collecting 15K from 1 month ago, the moment election come now, it's 1.2 million.
Because let me tell you why this happened, Kule. Because let me tell you.
Because the blog herself can collect stray bullets.
They never get it. They also know that they will not see Kunle's brake lights until 4 years later, 4 years after, when he wants to come for another thing. So let me chop all I can get. If we had good governance in this country, no, I'm being honest, right? If we had good governance in this country, this idea of let me eat all I can eat now would also stop. I'm ready for you.
My point is, we cannot absolve ourselves from being part of the system. None of us. None of us. That's my point. I'm not pointing at anybody. Say go to your village, they will greet you normally. The moment you say you're running for office, you cannot sit down without buying anything. And people will say it's village. Now let's even come back to the middle class. The biggest problem causers in Nigeria's politics. The moment I say I'm running for office, I'm buying drinks anytime my friends sit down. Honorable. Now, honorable, they do this one. Honorable, they do that one. It's a whole quagmire of stuff. So till we're able to get out or divorce ourselves from that culture, we're going to remain there.
Absolutely.
I can ask. Many people supported many presidential candidates. If I ask them now, what was his position on education? What was his position on this? You have no answer for that. And worse still, if I asked you that what was he going to do with a half budget, considering the president before him might have bailed with quite a lot of it, nobody had an answer and nobody asked any of those presidential candidates. We're going to see the economy and the fire we're going to see because you didn't plan for it and the candidate was not ready for it. And that's the truth. We don't ask the concrete questions. Our more concrete questions are you Igbo? Are you Yoruba? Are you Tiv? Are you Igala? Are you Fulani?
Are you Christian?
Are you Hausa?
Absolutely.
Those are concrete questions. Absolutely. Are you Christian? Are you Muslim? Those are our questions. Apart from that, we really don't care. Or do I know him? Or my uncle is inside his campaign team. If they win, I don't go Abuja.
For me. Let's take comment.
Okay, so this is good evening, my dear beautiful sisters. What are you saying? #ways. the just concluded election, what does this mean for Nigerians? I really want to ask this important question. Why is it that anytime a governor is sacked, that same governor is replaced with an APC person? Is APC the only party, or are there no other parties? My dear beautiful sister D made mention of violence in election, which is either through vote buying or fighting, which is in our DNA. Why can't we have a free and fair election? Is it a crime? It will get to an extent where people may decide not to vote because their vote may end up not counting. Your guest made mention of Kogi State having a peaceful election. Why can't other states do likewise? My name is Daniel Elo, Ways regular fan.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, so
I didn't say Kogi had a peaceful election. I said Kogi had a more peaceful election.
Oh, yeah,
than
compared
Richard.
to
that was
Is
what
that
you
not-
said, yeah. But Kunle, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. We're hoping when you're back in Lagos, we
You
can
grace us with your
and our fight
presence.
will continue because it is only you I
I
can
miss
fight.
you guys. I miss you guys, but I feel better in the center. Thank you.
I really, Kunle, don't worry. Don't worry. The center will be moved
Thank
back
you.
to Lagos, and I will see what you will. You will stay. You will remain in Abuja. But thank you so much. All right, thank you, Dee. We had a great time.
A great
all right, before we
conversation.
go, ensure you follow us across all social media handles. These are the Ways Show Africa. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow all our engagements on social media. Like, share, and invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. D, our very lovely quote. You said, "Even Jesus Christ
Cannot conduct.
conduct a free and fair election in Nigeria."
And Kunle spoiled it and said, you won't even turn water to wine
I'm
in
telling you,
Nigeria.
and he now said, angels, if they share samosa, it will go missing. Hi, Naija, we hate you. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Ciao.